In the year 2287, Earth was a planet full of hope and dreams. For the first time in history, humanity had reached beyond its homeworld. New colonies were built on distant moons and planets. Scientists discovered amazing things every day. People believed they were entering a golden age, a time when anything seemed possible. But all that changed one fateful morning. A dark day for humanity, it started like any other day. The sun rose over Earth's blue skies, and people went about their lives. Children played in parks, workers headed to jobs, and families gathered around dinner tables. No one suspected what was coming. Far out in space, near the edge of human territory, something strange appeared on radar screens. At first, it looked like a glitch, or maybe some kind of asteroid. But as the object grew closer, it became clear this wasn't natural. It was a fleet, a massive fleet of alien ships. The Valith Dominion had arrived. These aliens weren't here to talk or make friends. Their ships were enormous, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. They moved through space like predators, silent but deadly, and when they spoke, their voices sent chills down everyone's spines. "You are primitive," said the leader of the Valith, Commander Zerath. His voice echoed across communication channels, cold and merciless. "You do not deserve to live among the stars. Surrender now, or be erased." People froze in shock. Was this really happening? Were these aliens declaring war on Earth? Before anyone could respond, the Valith attacked. Their ships unleashed beams of energy so powerful they tore through Earth's orbital defenses like paper. Satellites exploded, space stations crumbled, and colonies on nearby planets were wiped out within minutes. Panic spread across the globe as news of the invasion reached Earth's surface. Meet the heroes amidst the chaos. A few brave individuals stepped forward to lead humanity's fight for survival. Captain Arik Solon was one of them. A decorated officer in Earth's fleet, he had once been a hero. But those days felt like a lifetime ago. Years earlier, during a smaller conflict with pirates, Solon had lost his wife and daughter when their colony was destroyed. Since then, he'd become quiet and distant, carrying the weight of his grief wherever he went. Still, when the call came for volunteers to face the Valith, Solon didn't hesitate. He knew Earth needed every soldier it could get, and deep down he wanted revenge. Joining him was Lieutenant Tessa Rourke, a young but brilliant tactician. Unlike Solon, Rourke hadn't seen much combat. She'd spent most of her career studying strategy and planning missions from behind a desk. But she was smart, quick-thinking, and fiercely loyal to her crew. Her sharp mind would prove invaluable in the battles ahead. Overseeing everything was Admiral Corwin Drake, the commander of Earth's fleet. Drake was an old-school leader, tough, no-nonsense, and driven by duty. He carried the weight of billions of lives on his shoulders and knew there was no room for failure. As the Valith attacked, Drake worked tirelessly to organize Earth's defenses, even though he knew they were hopelessly outnumbered. Finally, there was Echo, the ship's AI. Echo wasn't just a machine, it was designed to think and adapt like a human. Its creators hoped it could help turn the tide of battle, but Echo's calm, logical responses sometimes clashed with the emotions of the crew, creating tension at critical moments. Earth's desperate stand as the Valith fleet advanced toward Earth. Admiral Drake called an emergency meeting. Leaders from around the world gathered in a secure underground bunker to discuss their options. The situation was grim. "Our orbital defenses are gone," Drake explained, pointing to a map of the solar system. "Their ships are faster, stronger, and better armed than ours. If we try to fight them head-on, we'll lose." "What about retreating?" asked one politician. "Can we evacuate Earth?" Drake shook his head. "There's nowhere to go. The Valith will hunt us down no matter where we hide." Silence filled the room. Everyone knew the truth. Humanity was facing extinction. Then Captain Solon stood up. "We can't give up without a fight," he said firmly. "I'll take my ship, the Eclipse, and hit them where it hurts. If I can disrupt their supply lines, maybe we can buy enough time to regroup." Drake hesitated. The Eclipse was Earth's newest battleship, equipped with experimental weapons and advanced cloaking technology. Sending it into enemy territory alone was risky, but it might be their only chance. All right, Drake agreed finally. But you won't be going alone. Lieutenant Rourke will join you, along with Echo. Do whatever it takes to slow them down. Solon nodded. Understood. The mission begins. With orders in hand, Solon and his crew boarded the Eclipse. The ship was sleek and powerful, painted black to blend into the darkness of space. Its engines roared to life as it launched from Earth's last remaining orbital dock. Inside the cockpit, tension hung thick in the air. Solon stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched tightly. Beside him, Rourke studied maps and data, trying to plan their next move. In the corner, Echo's holographic avatar flickered softly, analyzing threats and offering suggestions. So, Rourke said after a while, breaking the silence. What's the plan? We find their supply lines and hit them hard, Solon replied. Without fuel and resources, their fleet will struggle to keep moving. And if they catch us? Rourke asked. They won't, Solon said sharply. Not if we're careful. Rourke nodded, but didn't press further. She could see the pain in Solon's eyes, the same pain that drove him to volunteer for this mission. Whatever happened next, she vowed to stand by him. First contact. The Eclipse slipped quietly through the void of space, avoiding detection thanks to its cloaking device. Hours passed without incident, giving the crew time to prepare for what lay ahead. Then suddenly alarms blared. Echo's voice broke the calm. Multiple contacts detected. Valith patrol ships approaching. Solon's hands tightened on the controls. How many? 3 vessels, Echo reported. They appear to be scanning the area. Rourke leaned forward, studying the readings. They don't know we're here yet. If we stay still, we might avoid them. No, Solon said firmly. We can't risk it. Prepare the EMP cannon. The EMP cannon was one of the Eclipse's secret weapons. It could disable enemy systems temporarily, giving the crew a chance to slip away. But using it would reveal their position. EMP ready, Rourke confirmed. Fire, Solon ordered. A burst of energy shot out from the Eclipse, striking the nearest Valith ship. Its lights flickered and died, leaving it drifting helplessly. The other 2 ships turned toward the source of the attack, searching for the invisible foe. Now! Solon shouted, pushing the engines to maximum speed. The Eclipse darted past, the confused Valith ships disappearing into the darkness before they could react. That was close, Rourke breathed, leaning back in her seat. Too close, Solon agreed, but we're still alive. For now. A glimmer of hope. Despite the danger, the crew pressed on. Over the next few days, they sabotaged several Valith convoys, destroying supplies and causing confusion among the enemy ranks. Word of their success began to spread back to Earth, lifting spirits and inspiring others to keep fighting. But Solon knew this was just the beginning. The real battle was yet to come, and the cost of victory would be higher than anyone imagined. As why? The Eclipse drifted silently through space. Solon gazed out at the stars. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity had a chance. They thought we'd kneel, he whispered to himself. But mercy isn't our weakness, it's their mistake. The Eclipse sailed through the vast emptiness of space, its black hull blending seamlessly with the darkness. Captain Arik Solon and his crew were deep behind enemy lines, far from Earth's safety. Their mission was simple but incredibly dangerous. Disrupt the Valith supply lines and gather intelligence on their massive flagship, the Obsidian Crown. Every decision they made could mean life or death, for them and for humanity. Dodging. Death after escaping their first encounter with Valith patrol ships, the crew of the Eclipse knew they couldn't afford any mistakes. The Valith were ruthless, and their sensors were advanced. Even with the ship's cloaking device, staying hidden wasn't easy. One evening, as the Eclipse drifted near a cluster of asteroids, Echo, the AI, spoke up. "Captain, we're approaching a Valith supply convoy. 3 freighters escorted by 2 warships." Solon leaned forward in his seat, studying the holographic map projected above the control panel. "Can we take them?" "It depends," Rourke chimed in, her eyes scanning the data. "Their warships are heavily armed, but the freighters are vulnerable. If we disable the escorts quickly, we can destroy the freighters before reinforcements arrive." Solon nodded. "Let's do it. Echo, prepare the plasma cannons. Rourke, get ready to launch drones." The plan was risky, but they didn't have time to wait. The Valith fleet was growing stronger every day, feeding off stolen resources from conquered worlds. Humanity couldn't afford to let them keep expanding. As the Eclipse moved closer, the tension on board grew thicker than ever. Solon gave the order. "Fire." A barrage of plasma bolts erupted from the Eclipse, striking one of the escort ships. Its shields flickered and collapsed under the attack. Before the other escort could respond, Rourke launched a swarm of drones, distracting its weapon systems long enough for the Eclipse to slip past. "Freighters are ours," Solon said, his voice calm but firm. The crew unleashed another wave of fire, obliterating the cargo ships in a fiery explosion. But the victory came at a cost. The surviving escort ship turned toward the Eclipse, its weapons charging. Alarms blared as the ship shook violently from incoming fire. "Shields down to 40%, Rourke shouted over the chaos. "Divert power from non-essential systems," Solon ordered. "We need to get out of here." With Echo guiding the engines, the Eclipse executed a daring escape maneuver, weaving between asteroids until the pursuing ship lost sight of them. When the danger passed, the crew sat in stunned silence, catching their breath. "We did it," Rourke finally said, breaking the quiet. "But we can't keep doing this forever." "No," Solon agreed, "but we don't have a choice." Discovering the truth as the days turned into weeks, the crew of the Eclipse continued their sabotage missions. Each success brought new risks and new revelations. During one raid, they discovered something that would change everything. While scanning a destroyed Valith outpost, Echo detected strange energy signatures coming from a hidden chamber. Curious, Solon decided to investigate. Inside the chamber, they found cages filled with alien prisoners. These weren't just random captives. They were members of races the Valith had conquered years ago. Some were barely alive, their bodies connected to machines extracting energy from them. "What is this?" Rourke whispered, horrified. Echo analyzed the equipment. "It appears to be a harvesting facility. The Valith are using these beings as fuel for their ships." Solon clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. "They're not just conquerors, they're monsters." Rourke knelt beside one of the prisoners, a frail-looking creature with glowing blue eyes. It reached out weakly, touching her hand. She looked back at Solon, tears streaming down her face. "We can't leave them like this." Solon hesitated. Rescuing the prisoners would slow them down and put the Eclipse at greater risk, but he couldn't ignore the suffering in front of him. "Get them on board," he said finally. "We'll figure out what to do later." Clashes within the crew as the rescued aliens recovered aboard the Eclipse. Tensions began to rise among the crew. Solon and Rourke argued frequently about their next move. While Solon wanted to focus on hitting the Valith hard and fast, Rourke believed they needed to prioritize helping the oppressed races they encountered. "You saw what they're doing to those people," Rourke snapped during one heated exchange. "How can you just ignore that?" "And how can we help anyone if we're dead?" Solon shot back. "Our mission is to stop the Valith, not play hero." Echo watched silently, analyzing their emotions. Finally it spoke. "Both perspectives are valid. Perhaps a compromise is necessary." Solon sighed, rubbing his temples. "Fine. We'll drop the survivors at the nearest safe zone, but after that we stick to the plan." Rourke nodded reluctantly. Though she disagreed, she respected Solon's leadership. For now, they had to stay focused. Close calls and narrow escapes. Every mission pushed the Eclipse closer to its limits. Supplies dwindled, repairs became more frequent, and the crew grew. increasingly exhausted. Yet despite the odds, they kept finding ways to survive. During one particularly harrowing encounter, the Eclipse stumbled upon a Valith surveillance drone. Before they could destroy it, the drone transmitted their location to nearby patrols. Within minutes, half a dozen warships surrounded them. "We're trapped," Rourke said, her voice trembling. "Not yet," Solon replied, his mind racing. "Echo, activate the decoy system." The Eclipse released a series of automated drones, designed to mimic its signature. The Valith ships opened fire on the decoys, giving the real ship a narrow window to escape. With Echo calculating precise maneuvers, Solon guided the Eclipse through the chaos, narrowly avoiding destruction. When they emerged on the other side, the crew cheered, but only briefly. They all knew they couldn't keep relying on luck. Uncovering a shocking secret. During their final raid before heading deeper into enemy territory, the crew hacked into a Valith database. What they found left them speechless. "The Valith aren't just attacking us because we're weak," Echo explained, processing the information. "They see humanity as a future threat. Our rapid technological advancements worry them." Solon frowned. "So they're scared of us?" "In a way, yes," Rourke said, piecing it together. "They think if they don't crush us now, we'll become too powerful to stop later." For the first time, Solon felt a flicker of pride. Despite everything, humanity had earned the Valith's fear. But that realization also brought a heavy burden. If the Valith were willing to go to such lengths to destroy Earth, then surrender was truly not an option. A costly victory as the Eclipse prepared for its most dangerous mission yet, an assault on the Obsidian Crown. The crew reflected on how far they'd come. They had faced impossible odds, uncovered horrifying truths, and still managed to fight back. But they all knew the hardest part was yet to come. In the cockpit, Solon stared out at the stars. "We've done the impossible so far," he said, softly. "But the real test starts now." Rourke placed a hand on his shoulder. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Solon nodded, a faint smile crossing his face. "For Earth." The Eclipse had survived countless battles, but its crew knew their luck wouldn't last forever. Each mission brought them closer to the heart of the Valith fleet, and closer to their ultimate goal, destroying the Obsidian Crown, the massive flagship that served as the nerve center for the alien empire. The stakes were higher than ever, and every decision carried life or death consequences. For Captain Arik Solon and his team, there was no turning back now. Into the lion's den, after weeks of sabotage and narrow escapes, the crew of the Eclipse finally reached the edge of the Valith stronghold, a dense cluster of ships orbiting a dying star. At the center of it all loomed the Obsidian Crown, an enormous vessel bristling with weapons and glowing ominously in the dim light. Its presence was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "We're here," Solon said quietly, staring at the holographic map displayed on the bridge. "This is it." Rourke leaned over the console, her eyes scanning the data. "Their defenses are insane. There are patrols everywhere, not to mention mines and automated turrets. Getting close to the Crown won't be easy, and surviving long enough to destroy it will be even harder," Echo added, its calm voice cutting through the tension. "Probability of success? Less than 10%. Solon clenched his fists. "We've beaten worse odds before. If we can take out their supply lines, we can do this too." But as much as he tried to sound confident, doubt gnawed at him. He glanced at his crew, Rourke, exhausted but determined, Echo calculating every possible scenario, and the rescued aliens huddled in the cargo bay, watching silently. They were counting on him to lead them through this nightmare. Failure wasn't an option. "All right," Solon said firmly. "Let's go over the plan one more time." A desperate plan. The strategy was risky, but it was their only chance. Using the Eclipse's cloaking device, they would slip past the outer defenses and plant explosives on key sections of the Obsidian Crown. Once inside, They'd use the ship's experimental quantum disruptor, a weapon capable of disabling entire systems to cripple the flagship from within. Timing is everything, Rourke explained, pointing to the map. If we detonate the charges too early, the Valith will have time to repair the damage. Too late, and we'll get caught in the blast. And if the disruptor fails? Solon asked. Then we improvise, Rourke replied with a grim smile. Isn't that what we always do? Solon nodded, though he didn't share her optimism. Improvisation had kept them alive so far, but this time, failure meant certain death, for them, and possibly for Earth. Breaking through as the eclipse approached, the Valith fleet, the tension aboard the ship was palpable. Every member of the crew held their breath, waiting for the moment when they'd either succeed or die trying. Cloaking device holding steady, Echo reported. No signs of detection yet. Good, Solon said, gripping the controls tightly. Keep us low and slow. Don't give them any reason to look twice. The ship glided silently through the chaos, dodging patrols and weaving between larger vessels. It felt like navigating a minefield, with danger lurking around every corner. But thanks to Echo's calculations and Rourke's quick thinking, they managed to reach the Obsidian Crown undetected. Docking bay ahead, Rourke whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engines. Looks clear. Solon guided the Eclipse into the hangar, landing softly among rows of smaller Valith fighters. As soon as the ship touched down, the crew sprang into action. Armed with plasma rifles and EMP grenades, they moved quickly through the corridors, avoiding patrols and planting explosives along the way. This place is a maze, Rourke muttered, checking her scanner. Echo, make sure we don't double back. Understood, Echo replied, proceeding to target zone. Despite their careful planning, things quickly went wrong. Halfway to their destination, alarms blared throughout the ship. A patrol had discovered one of their charges and sounded the alarm. They know we're here, Rourke shouted, firing at approaching Valith soldiers. We need to move faster. Solon cursed under his breath but didn't hesitate. Stick to the plan. Get to the core. The crew fought their way forward, blasting through waves of enemies and narrowly avoiding traps. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal, but they pressed on, driven by sheer determination. Facing the enemy finally, they reached the heart of the Obsidian Crown, the central reactor. It pulsed with energy, feeding power to the entire ship. If they could disable it, the flagship would collapse, but getting close was nearly impossible. Activating the quantum disruptor, Echo announced, interfacing with the reactor's control panel. Stand by for system shutdown. But just as the disruptor began its work, Commander Xyrath appeared, flanked by a squad of elite Valith warriors. His golden eyes burned with fury as he addressed Solon. You humans never cease to amaze me, Xyrath sneered. Even in the face of certain death, you refuse to surrender. Solon raised his rifle, aiming it squarely at the alien leader. Surrender isn't in our nature. Xyrath laughed coldly. Then let us see how far your bravery takes you. What followed was a brutal firefight. The crew of the Eclipse fought valiantly, taking down several Valith soldiers despite being outnumbered. But ammunition was running low, and injuries were mounting. Rourke took a hit to her shoulder but kept fighting, refusing to fall. Disruptor online, Echo shouted. Reactor destabilizing. Fall back, Solon ordered, grabbing Rourke and pulling her toward the exit. Now! The final sacrifice. As the crew raced back to the Eclipse, the Obsidian Crown began to shake violently. Alarms screamed, warning of imminent destruction. The reactor was going critical and there was no stopping it. We're not going to make it, Rourke yelled, clutching her wound as they ran. Yes, we are, Solon replied, dragging her forward. Keep moving! They reached the docking bay just as the first explosions rocked the ship. Flames erupted from walls and ceilings, threatening to consume them. Solon shoved Rourke onto the Eclipse and turned to face the chaos. Captain, come on, Rourke pleaded, reaching out to him. I'll hold them off, Solon said, his voice steady. Get the ship out of here. No, Rourke cried. You can't stay. I have to, Solon replied, giving her a sad smile. Someone has to make sure this works. Trust me. Before she could argue further, Solon sealed the hatch and activated the launch sequence. The Eclipse roared to life, lifting off just as the obsidian crown imploded in a blinding explosion. Survivors returned back in the safety of space. The crew watched in stunned silence as the remains of the Valith fleet scattered in confusion. Without their flagship, the aliens were disorganized and vulnerable. Humanity had won, for now. Rourke sat alone in the cockpit, tears streaming down her face. She thought of Solon's final moments, his sacrifice ensuring their survival. Though devastated, she vowed to honor his memory by continuing the fight. In the distance, Earth's reinforcements arrived, ready to finish what the Eclipse had started. As the survivors prepared to reunite with their allies, Rourke whispered softly, "They thought we'd kneel, but mercy was never our weakness." The destruction of the Obsidian Crown marked a turning point in the war. The once invincible Valith fleet was thrown into chaos, their leader, Commander Xerath, presumed dead, and their forces scattered across the stars. But the cost of victory weighed heavily on those who remained. For Lieutenant Tessa Rourke and the surviving crew of the Eclipse, the battle wasn't over. It was just beginning. A hero's legacy, as the Eclipse drifted through space, its damaged hull groaning under the strain of countless battles. The crew struggled to process what had happened. Captain Arik Solon's sacrifice haunted them all. His final act of bravery had saved not only his crew but also humanity itself. Yet the loss felt unbearable. Rourke sat in the cockpit, staring out at the endless void. Her shoulder throbbed where she'd been injured, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the ache in her heart. She replayed Solon's last words over and over in her mind. "Trust me." It was a promise she intended to keep. "Lieutenant." Echo's voice broke the silence. "We are approaching Earth's reinforcements. Shall I initiate contact?" Rourke nodded, wiping away tears. "Do it. Let's tell them what happened." Moments later, a holographic image of Admiral Corwin Drake appeared on the screen. His weathered face lit up with relief as he saw the battered but intact Eclipse. "Rourke, you're alive," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "What about Solon?" Rourke hesitated, her throat tightening. "He didn't make it. He stayed behind to ensure the mission succeeded." Drake closed his eyes briefly, clearly shaken. When he spoke again, his tone was firm. "Then we'll honor his sacrifice. Tell me everything." Rourke recounted the events leading up to the destruction of the Obsidian Crown, the sabotage missions, the discoveries about the Valith's cruelty, and finally, the desperate assault that had turned the tide of the war. By the time she finished, Drake's expression was one of awe and gratitude. "You've done the impossible," he said. "Solon gave us a fighting chance. Now it's our turn to finish this." The final push with the Eclipse safely docked aboard an Earth carrier ship. Rourke joined Admiral Drake and other leaders to plan the next phase of the campaign. Intelligence reports confirmed that the Valith were regrouping near their homeworld, preparing for a counterattack. Humanity had to strike quickly while the enemy was still weak. "We hit them hard and fast," Drake declared during a strategy meeting. "Their morale is shattered, and they know we're coming. If we can destroy their homeworld, the war ends today." "But how do we get there?" asked one officer. "Their territory is heavily fortified." "That's where the Eclipse comes in," Drake replied, turning to Rourke. "Your ship knows their defenses better than anyone. You'll lead the assault." Rourke nodded, though the weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. She wasn't sure she was ready to step into Solon's role, but she knew someone had to. "Understood, sir. We'll get the job done." The journey to victory. The journey to the Valith homeworld was long and perilous. Along the way, the fleet encountered resistance, smaller patrols attempting to slow their advance. Each skirmish tested the resolve of the human forces, but they pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that failure meant extinction. On board the Eclipse, Rourke worked tirelessly to prepare her crew for the final battle. She repaired damaged systems, trained new recruits, and studied every piece of intel they had on the Valith. Despite her grief, she found strength in the memory of Solon and the sacrifices made by so many others. One night, as the fleet approached the edge of Valith space, Rourke stood alone in the observation deck, gazing at the distant stars. Echo joined her, its holographic avatar flickering softly. "Do you think we can win?" Rourke asked quietly. "The odds are uncertain," Echo replied. "But your determination has already achieved the impossible. That gives hope." Rourke smiled faintly. "Hope, huh? Maybe that's enough." The battle for the homeworld. When the fleet arrived at the Valith homeworld, the sight was both breathtaking and terrifying. The planet glowed ominously, surrounded by layers of defensive satellites and swarms of warships. It was clear the Valith weren't going down without a fight. "This is it," Rourke said to her crew as they prepared for the assault. "Today, we end this war. For Earth, for Solon, for everyone who believed in us." The battle began with a barrage of missiles and energy beams, lighting up the darkness of space. The human fleet charged forward, taking heavy losses, but refusing to retreat. The Eclipse led the charge, using its cloaking device to slip past enemy lines and target key defenses. Inside the Eclipse, the crew fought with everything they had. Rourke coordinated attacks, shouting orders over the chaos. "Target those satellites, we need a clear path." Explosions rocked the ship as enemy fire rained down. Alarms blared, warning of critical damage. Still, the crew held their ground, inspired by Rourke's leadership and the memory of those who had fallen. Finally, after hours of relentless fighting, the fleet broke through the outer defenses and reached the surface of the Valith homeworld. The Eclipse deployed teams to disable the planetary shield generators, allowing bombers to strike the heart of the enemy stronghold. Mercy. Denied as the human forces closed in, the remaining Valith leaders attempted to negotiate. A transmission came through showing Commander Zirath, alive but badly wounded. "You cannot defeat us," Zirath growled, his voice laced with desperation. "Even if you destroy our world, the Valith will rise again." Rourke stepped forward, her expression cold and resolute. "Not this time. Your empire ends here." Without hesitation, she gave the order to fire. The combined might of Earth's fleet unleashed a devastating attack, obliterating the Valith homeworld in a massive explosion. The light from the blast illuminated the faces of the human soldiers, etching a moment of triumph and sorrow into history. A new beginning. With the Valith defeated, the survivors of Earth returned home to rebuild. Cities rose from the ashes, families reunited, and dreams of peace replaced the scars of war. The story of the Eclipse and its crew became legend, inspiring generations to come. At a memorial ceremony honoring those who had given their lives, Rourke stood before a crowd of thousands. Behind her stood a monument engraved with the names of the fallen, including Captain Arik Solon. "They called us weak," Rourke said, her voice steady and strong. "They thought we would kneel. But mercy was never our weakness. It was theirs. Today we stand united, proud of who we are and what we've overcome. For Earth, for tomorrow." As fireworks lit up the sky, Rourke looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of peace. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and emerged victorious. Not because of superior weapons or technology, but because of courage, unity, and the refusal to give up. And somewhere among the constellations, Captain Solon's spirit watched over them, knowing his sacrifice had not been in vain.